Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it and give this video a like.
Podcast in the description. Need you to subscribe to that as well.
Also, go check out wineaccess.com/ham. 20% off your first order. Some of the best wines in the world, all curated for you.
20% off wineaccess.com/ham.
Send a gift, send some love. So the Niners are all in. Like I'm looking at the YouTube chat as we're doing the live show, and there are several comments. And you and I, we've been talking about this for a while because it's come up a lot. Who's the Niners' third receiver? Al says the best third receiver is by committee. KGS 99. The Niners' third receiver is Jennings, Hurd, or James. I mean, this is a big topic, and the one thing that you can't argue, yes, trading for Julio would have cost you, but it would have answered what has become one of the biggest questions outside of quarterback with the Niners, the depth at wide receiver. What do you make of it now?
Well, your third wide receiver would have kind of been like Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel because Julio's your one.
Well, yeah, and you got Kittle. Right.
Yeah, so, I mean, really, those guys are your third and fourth options. Deebo and Ayuk, you're in pretty good shape.
It would have been in great shape.
At the end of the day, the Shanahan family dreams, and I mean dreams, of running the football. It is their core ethos, running the football. It's what they do. It's what their offensive scheme is predicated off of. The success in the passing game is really a product of the run game, right? Because so many things are play action. So many of their most explosive plays are scheme plays off the play action run. What did they do this offseason? They doubled, $55 million down on Trent Williams. And hell, they almost lost him. They went and signed Alex Mack. They drafted ultimately to play quarterback, but he's a running quarterback. And in the second round, they took Aaron Banks. I keep calling him Josh Banks, but it's Aaron Banks. Aaron Banks, an enormous human being that played guard at Notre Dame. Their third round pick, a big running back from Oklahoma and Ohio State. And then they even went again in the sixth round, Elijah Mitchell in the sixth round, another running back. Right. Two running backs, an enormous offensive lineman. They signed their star left tackle. They signed another center. Like, let's face it, even Jimmy Garoppolo starts all 17 games. Jimmy Garoppolo's best football happened when the Niners were running the shit out of the football. Now, ultimately, you got to pass to win big games. Like, you have to be good on third and long. Like, I'm not acting like passing does not matter. It's a passing league. But what Kyle wants to do, like, they've kind of doubled down this offseason, right? To me, and they re-signed Juszczyk, who's a major part of their run game. Like, that's their aggression financially, draft capital-wise, it's pretty clear. Like, they want to get back to really, really running the football. And last year, they were just so top-heavy. Coleman, you couldn't be counted on because he got hurt all the time. McKinnon was a shell of himself. Mostert, who's hurt again, just gets hurt a lot. So I just, ideally, you're just going to ride it out with Mostert, like, because his good is so good. But you need backups of just size. And they drafted two. I mean, Trey Sermon's a massive running back. Right?
He stood out when we looked at him the other day at OTAs when we were there.
I don't know if they have, like, goals written up in the offensive room, but I bet if you were having beers with Kyle Shanahan, he'd be like, if we're not a top 5 rushing offense, we got, like, I haven't done my job, right? He wants to be a top 5 running offense.
I don't think Kyle's been able to run the ball as much as he wants to. Just in his career. When I go back and look, I'll give you a couple numbers. Mike Shanahan was a head coach or an offensive coordinator in the NFL for 27 years. Okay.
Jesus.
One of the two. In those 27 years, his offense was top 15 in rushing attempts 20 of the 27 years. In attempts. Top 15 in attempts. Kyle's been top 15 in attempts 7 of his 13 years as an offensive coordinator head coach. So Washington, some of the Mike and Kyle years cross over. Houston, Atlanta, San Francisco. Of his top 7 rushing years, 3 of them were in San Francisco attempts. But I don't think he's actually, in terms of attempts, run it as much as he would like to. When you look at his most attempts, I mean, you could probably guess what number 1 would be. It'd be the year they were fantastic, right? 2019, they were second in the league in attempts and second in yards. His second most attempts was 20. I left out Cleveland. Washington, Cleveland, they were top 10 in attempts in 2 of his years there. In 18 at San Francisco, they were 11th in attempts. 14th in attempts last year. But I don't think Kyle's run the ball as much as he wants. We have not seen the consistency of volume of running the football. You're right. 2019, That's what Kyle would like. Kyle would love 2019 running with a more dynamic quarterback, right? That's what we're working towards from his perspective.
Two of my favorite football guys in my football life have been one I was lucky enough, and same with you, to be around pretty closely, in Pat Hill.
Yeah.
And then two kind of from afar. I mean, granted, we got to go to practices and games or whatever, but didn't really know the guy, in Harbaugh and Kyle. The one thing that Harbaugh and Pat Hill share, and I saw an embrace with Andy Reid, the Harbaugh brothers, and Pat Hill at the Combine, I think in like 2011. It was like a huge group hug. The irony is Andy, like the Harbaugh brothers and Pat, are much more old school defense. Andy's running like fucking spread bombs away, but they're just football guys get along. Pat Hill and definitely Harbaugh, they loved power. I mean, they ran the power play. It was you pull a guard, you run a fullback, you're basically leading with a guard and a fullback up the hole. I mean, it's both those human beings' favorite play. Kyle's run offense is a little bit different than their running offense, but I think like those guys, and he doesn't look, he's wearing Milan hats, and it's just like he looks like he should be in Cabo hanging out in the offseason, which is probably where he's headed. He has a lot in common with old school guys, right? Like the way he wants to play. And this is where I give Kyle a lot of credit, is he always puts resources in on defense. His favorite player on the team, I think, is the middle linebacker, right? And I think he's a big Bosa guy. Like he's kind of an old school football guy for a younger school football guy, right? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it's 100%. I think Mike does not.
But Mike is an old school football, but Mike's old.
Right, but Mike feels in many ways like a defensive guy. Like I think that's part of where it comes from with Kyle, is that it's all built on physicality, which is normally, historically, applies to both sides of the football. But in the last 15 years, physicality, you can play offense in the sport and minimize physicality, right, relative to the way some other teams run offense. The idea of power offense, right, has basically disappeared from the college game. There are elements of it, but no one just runs power football anymore, and it happened fast, right? And then,
if you do, and same with defense, it's like you know any like really good looking guys, all their story. You know what travels well? Being good looking. It's like, oh yeah, I met my girlfriend in an airport. Oh yeah, I met my girlfriend on a vacation. Oh yeah, I met my girlfriend on a work trip. Everywhere they're going, like they travel because they're really good looking.
Right. They just meet girls everywhere. One of them happened to become their girlfriend.
Yeah, it's like met her at a bar. Met her in the coach. Like you just meet people because fucking people. You're good looking. Well, run game and defense, it just travels. Like it works. It's worked in every generation, in every era, still to this day. It's a tried and true formula.
His GM is not just a former player, right? John Lynch does not have that effect on the team so much as John Lynch is a match with Kyle because of what he's about football-wise, right? What's his calling card? Is a defensive, an enforcer type, physical, tough guy, right?
Causing concussions?
Yeah, he did, when we had him on the podcast, he debated whether or not he would have gotten fined for some of the hits we were showing him. We found some of his YouTube highlights.
He would have been fined all the time.
He got kind of do you remember that? Lynch got kind of was like, John, I think that would be a penalty on you. He's like, no, that wouldn't be a penalty.
I mean, he made the Hall of Fame by knocking people out, which I love. I mean, I miss that type of football. But when you showed the clip of just the highlight tape, he would have been in trouble.
He would have been in a lot of trouble. Yeah,
we couldn't have played like that.
It's part of why he's a match with Kyle in terms of just football philosophy.
In a weird way, like I think we kind of have established, like Kyle likes his wide receivers to block, right? He likes his running backs to run downhill. Like he likes big defensive players. Like
he likes Debo. He likes yards after the catch.
Kinlaw. Honestly, John feels like more progressive, like open-minded with skill guys and like speed. It's weird. Like he's the Hall of Fame safety, knocking people out, and you got this young offensive coordinator, and they kind of feel opposites. But however they work, they do mesh pretty well.
I wonder if any of that came from being a broadcaster, John Lynch, where it's like you just want to see a good game, you just want to see a fun game, you know?
Yeah, maybe that helps.
You don't roll up to the stadium hoping to call a 9-6 slugfest.
Because I've always understood, and I've talked to friends about this, like with Jonathan Abram pick with Gruden and Mayock. I mean, both those guys cut their teeth on football in the 80s and 90s. And what you're established when you're young, we talked about this with Andy, right? The reason Andy likes passing game goes back to when he was playing for Lavelle Edwards with Steve Young and Jim McMahon at BYU. He didn't just established this philosophy in like 1996. You get hit on it as a football guy, either when you're playing or when you first start coaching, right? That guy has a huge impact on you. Flying coach, Sean McVay was like, yeah, the Grudens and the Shanahan, like when I'm young and these people are teaching me football, it just changes my philosophy. And I just think Kyle, I don't know. You just back to the Abram thing. Like I get why they loved Abrams. Like I bet Gruden, Mayock was like. I bet a lot of people in the league were like, I'd want this guy on my squad. Look at this guy, like the Spielmans. I bet John Schneider, all guys all over the league.
He's going to be a cornerstone. He's going to establish what we're about. He's going to set the tone.
This guy's going to hit people in the teeth. And there were probably some just progressive people that were like, the league's trending the other way. And I don't blame any old school. No, it'll never trend away from toughness. It is true, but it's a hard balance to kind of walk. It's my philosophy always is, and this is where I credit any team that doubles down always on offensive and defensive line. It's really the only true area now where you're allowed to it can look like Mean Joe Green in the 70s still.
And the 49ers do that.
Well, I know.
Yeah. No, I know you don't. You're right.
I think the hitting just player is getting phased out a little bit.
Well, even if your quarterback wants to throw and wants to get rid of the ball quickly, you still have to be able to protect him, right? So the game is still won and lost on the line of scrimmage.
You win in the trenches, guy.
You win in the trenches.